The last lesson of the day, and also someone be feeling, just pray, and then we'll get straight into it. Lord, I thank you for the day. I thank you for each and every student. We pray, Lord, that you'll help us to look at the book of Job, that you can help us to learn from Job's experiences, that we might put them into practice in the right way in our lives, Lord. Amen.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not quite sure who I've got connected, but I've got, I believe I've got Sandra, and I've got 3 students here, and it looks like there's other people as well. It says 8 others on here, so I'm just going to do what I can. I'm not seeing one of you on the screen. Right, we said that we were doing poetry, and in August and September we're doing the book of Job. Talk a little bit about what poetry was last time, and what, you know, how that sometimes is different in the Bible than what we think of as poetry in everyday life. Your assignment for next month is in your syllabus, and it's to write at least 1,000 words on suffering, and the things I'd like to cover are in your syllabus. Is there value in suffering? What the sources of suffering? Is it caused by sin? Does God have the right to allow suffering? How can a God of love allow suffering in the world? As a committed Christian, do things touch your life that do not get run by God first? And use some biblical examples to prove the benefit or lack of benefit of suffering. Also, try to think of 4 contemporary sort of examples, you know, everyday life examples as well. But that's all in your syllabus for you. So on the Job, or back onto Job. So last time we had a little look at these, we talked about the whole idea of suffering. Life is difficult, life is unfair, we talked about that. And we had a little look at the division of the book of Job. And really we talked a bit about suffering, didn't we? And, you know, about does God have the right to do as he pleases, and the whole idea that Job was referred to the devil by God. You know, have you considered me servant? So for our second lesson, we're just going to sort of zone in on Job here and his wife, and just sort of think about it in everyday terms if we can. Now, most of this stuff is in your handout. I've even given you my teaching notes there on the first page, so you can, you know, I'm pretty transparent. That's where I'm sort of teaching from today. So I even give you my notes. The Scottish preacher Alexander White put it this way: Job's sorrows came and not a single spy, but in battalions. I mean, you know, what's happened to him? All his possessions are taken away. All his children are dead. He gets every major illness, basically, that there is. And yet, what does he do? The Bible says, he got up off the ground, he arose, he tore his robe, so that's the action of man anguish. That's used in the Old Testament to portray utter grief. He shaved his head. Now, in the scripture, hair is the glory of an individual. I'm glad it's not now, like, but have a look at me. It's the expression of his worth. To shave it would be to lose his glory. He fell to the ground, not in a collapse of grief, but for another purpose, worship. He fell to the ground to worship. Why? Because this is the only way he knew to actually do what he had to do with him. Palms down, face down, knees and toes touching the ground, body fully extended as he poured out his heart in worship. Job deliberately got in this position of complete and humble submission. So what's happening now is, you know, he's had everything taken away. And if you've got your Bibles with you, we'll have a quick look at 1 Timothy chapter 6. 1 Timothy 6, 7 to 8. Has anyone got that? They can read that.
6.
Yeah, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 7 to 8.
nothing into this world, and it is certain we have nothing else. And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content.
That's fair. We brought nothing in this world, as certainly can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therefore content. You know, it sounds easy, doesn't it? But, you know, if we contemplate not having a job, if we contemplate not having enough money, if we contemplate not having clothes, it's easy to say, isn't it? But I tell you what, you'd feel guilty. You'd feel like you'd let your family down. You'd feel like you weren't a good provider. Lee, I'm looking at you. If you couldn't provide anything, you'd feel like a bad father. You know, Job's human. You know, we look at him and think, you know, he dealt with all this, but I bet you he went through those feelings that I'm feeling when I'm thinking about how he's feeling, you know. Now, the thing about him is that he's learning to live without all of that. I mean, how do you live when all of your children have died? Losing me clothes, yeah, losing me possessions, yeah, be upset and I feel like a bad provider, all that, but losing me children. But he knows he's got to hold. He's learned a major lesson here. He's got to, you know, he's learned a major thing. Hold everything loosely. Sometimes I don't know about you, but I hold on to things too tightly. You know, and they're not really mine. Even my children. You know, the Bible says they're not really my children. They're just given from God for me to nurture and look after. But that was round one. That was a complete surprise there. Round two, Satan asks if he can go further and he attacks Job's health. He predicts that Job will curse God to his face. God allows it, but tells Satan not to kill Job. And, you know, if we think about what he actually suffered, there's a handout there, Job's physical suffering. This is a summary of what he suffered and where it is in the scriptures. Inflamed ulcerous sores, persistent itching, degenerative changes in facial skin, disfiguration, loss of appetite, fears and depression, sores that burst open, scab over, crack and ooze of pus, worms that form in the sores, difficulty in breathing, a darkening of the eyelid, foul breath, loss of weight, excruciating and continual pain, high fever with chills and discolouring of skin, as well as anxiety and diarrhea. There you go. In addition, he endured delirium, sleeplessness, and the rejection of friends, all of which lasted for months. In short, Job became the personification of misery. You've got to remember that in all of that, he's isolated, he's relocated, he's living in the city dump. He's living in the scrapyard, as we would call it. Yeah, it's a place where they burn the garbage and rubbish and the human excrement from the city, and this is where he's living. So let's sort of get down to it and look at the relationships here. Job still had a wife. His wife told him to curse God and die. But if we understand his wife, we've got to remember that she too has lost 10 children. Also, she suffered the loss of wealth and possessions. For years, she'd enjoyed being the wife of the greatest of all men in the East. Now they're living in the dump. And they've lost everything, the children, her husband's really ill. She's lost the companionship of her husband. He's not the person that he was. And we've got a bit of advice. I found this, I don't know whether you agree with it, but advice to wives here. Guard your words when your husband's going through some terribly hard times. Ongoing hardship strengthens women but weakens men, some would say. But we are different. Never suggest that your husband compromise integrity. You know, never suggest that he curses God and die. You know, that he goes against what he believes. Remember Abraham and Hagar, you know, the fact that didn't wait for the promise, but went into the servant, and then created a whole, a whole different nation that God didn't really intend to be created. And I was reading today about Lot, when Lot's two daughters seduced him and got the drunken father to sleep with him, and from there we get two of the tribes that came to battle against Israel for hundreds and thousands of years. These two tribes came from, they're getting the father drunk and compromising his integrity. How many people in the world through those moments of, some of us through drinking, drugs, and moments of, bad decisions, but how many people have made bad decisions that have lasted with them and everlasting consequences, It's the same in the spiritual world and in our relationship with Christ as well. Advice to husbands, we'll put it the other way as well. Listen well and always tell your wife the truth. Teach her what you've learnt about God. Model verbal purity. Accept her completely, love her unconditionally. These didn't come from me. I was given these and I thought I'd throw them in. I'll put here, it's easier to lower your view of God than to raise your faith to a higher height.
Sorry, Andrew, but is there in the Bible?
That advice is sort of, it's biblical principles, I would say. Now Job is still worshipping. He's worshipping he's not worshipping with his hands upstretched and looking up to the sky. He's worshipping from his face buried in the ground. Total humility. But worship at its highest level says this: I don't understand it. I can't explain it. I don't like it. Nevertheless, may his name be praised. Any questions, any comments about anything I've shared so far? I know I'm sort of whizzing through. I don't like to do all the talking, but it seems to be one of those lessons. Let's have a look at Job's friends. So Job's friends, these are the ones he goes to, and we've got different characters here. Eliphaz stresses God's justice and purity. He felt that people bring trouble upon themselves, and that humans can't live up to God's standards. So he's basically saying, you brought it upon yourself type thing. Bildad appeals to tradition, saw himself as a defender of orthodox doctrine. God will not reject a blameless man. He implied that Job must be guilty of some sin. Look, you must have done something. You must have done something to bring this upon yourself. God just wouldn't let you go through this. That's what he's sort of saying. So far as a rationalist, he reasoned that Job's punishment was no less than he could be reasonably expected. He said that Job's problem was greed, and that this is God's way of sort of stopping him being greedy. Elihu suggests that his suffering could have been a warning to prevent Job from sinning. Funny, isn't it? Everyone has different opinions on what happens to us and why. How does he respond to his friends? He praised the virtues of wisdom. He remembered his life before trouble. He laments his present physical condition, and he denies that he's guilty of sins. What can we learn from? I know I'm giving you lots of handouts already. I'm just thinking of the handouts, but you might forget my words, but they're written down forever. So that's why I give you quite a lot. What can we learn from Job's friends? Their words proved they did not understand his pain. When they just sat and grieved with him, it no doubt brought comfort. What we are to people is often more important than what we say. Encouragement is not so much what we say, but our willingness to be there in the moment of pain and to help heal the hurt in life. They refuse to recognize suffering as part of God's plan for Job. The most important thing for the person who's suffering is to know God is in their situation with them, and that God's still in control. They related all suffering to sin in Job's life. Yes, all suffering is due to sin, Adam and Eve's, but not all suffering in a person's life is due to one particular sin that they did. I mean, the Jews believe that. We don't have to believe that. There are things that happen not just because of our choices, but because of choices of people before us, or choices of politicians, or choices of people who go against the law, you know. If something happens to one of my children, something bad, one of them gets knocked over by a car, is that because I've sinned? Or is it because the driver decided to, you know, read his phone while he was driving? You know, is it, you know, so you've got all of that sort of thinking as well. Really, these had oversimplified, they used oversimplified package answers that did not fit with Job's situation. And really what we're saying is every person is unique, and every one of us has a different relationship to God. And we can't always understand exactly what a person's going through. We can have some empathy with people, but we're all different, and we all handle things in different ways as well. So it's about being that friend, isn't it? It's about, I mean, on the next handout, I've got a lot of things about friends. A friend is someone who walks in when the whole world walks out. The three kinds of friendship: friends for a season, friends for a reason, and forever friends. You know, and we've all experienced the different types, I think. I've got a thing written here that says, you can say what needs to be said if you say it in the right way at the right time. Three kinds of friend that we need. We all need someone older than us, someone we can look up to for advice. Often this is a leader in church, in a church situation. Not always though. Sometimes it's a father figure, a granddad, you know, but often it's a pastor or a pastor's wife, or sometimes we're fortunate we have more than one of these, you know. But we all need someone that we can look up to and go to for advice. We all need someone close to our age and stage of life, you know, people we can laugh with and cry with. You know, sometimes, you know, if I'm a dad with three kids, it's nice to have friends who have kids of similar age, and, you know, or people who understand my humour, people who recollect what I recollect, that type of thing, you know. And this one, interesting one, we need someone who looks up to us, that we're mentoring, someone that we are sort of helping along. And we don't always have that. Or sometimes we do, but we don't always recognise that someone is there. Sometimes there might be people who do that, especially in a church situation, but we're not aware that they're looking at us and wanting to follow us, you know. But maybe that's the one we need to cultivate. Or maybe it's the other one in the middle we need to cultivate. Maybe we don't have someone we can laugh with. Maybe we don't have someone we can look up to for advice, but we need this balance of friends, I think. Any questions, any comments? Sort of whizzing through things to do, really.
It's funny when you're reading these different ones, you picture the ones in your life who reflects.
Can you hear what they're saying then? And you do, you put faces on them, don't you? And there are different times in my life where sometimes I feel I've got some of them, sometimes I feel I haven't got some of them. I put in a little article there from 2005 from a magazine, Christian Woman's magazine for pastors' wives, that was handed on to us. It talks about comfort and how to help a person whose world has fallen apart. And I'm not going to read that out, but you know, I'll put that in for you to have a read. You know, how do you comfort people? You know, read that in your own time, really. Next handout I have given you is how can we help a suffering friend? So as I say, I will read that article for yourself. How can we help a suffering friend? Basically, sit with them, give them time, make them feel that you know that you're there for them. Really, I I was sorting out my things in the house. I mean, we've moved house recently. We've got hundreds of boxes of things that we need to sort out. And I've gone through one particular box, and I found letters of when I moved away from church and went to become a student and lived 100 miles away. And I found a letter from the youth leader in the church. I'd moved away when I was 18, and I found a letter from the youth leader, and I think I'm going to read it out next time I preach, to be honest. He basically spent a page. This is a man who had 4 kids, a wife and 4 kids, and a full-time job, and he was studying at the time as well. And he basically spent a whole page saying he felt that the last time he saw us, he hadn't given us enough time, and was truly sorry. And I was reading it last night and waiting a little bit, thinking, because this man's not with the Lord now, thinking, he had a wife, 4 kids, and a job, yet he's saying he felt sorry they didn't spend enough time with me in the last time he saw us. And I started thinking, when's the last time I spent time with anybody in church? I'm a church minister. When's the last time I sat with somebody? Or am I too caught up in my own things, you know? How can we help a suffering friend? Do we sit with them in a time of trouble, pray with them, listen with them, bring them food and water if they need it, you know, take them out to eat? You know, but this is saying, do those things, ask them if they wanted to read the Bible to them, be sensitive to know when to talk, when to listen. I know when it's me, but I don't really want people to give me advice, I just want to listen most of the time. And really, it's about showing them that you can do what you do. Now, back in the context of Job. Job, you know, we look at Job's friends and think that they were harsh and that, but I'm sure that he did appreciate that they were his friends, and maybe the words and the advice wasn't right, but I'm sure that they gave him some comfort in the fact that they were listening to him and giving him time and all of that. So we don't always get that from the scriptures, do we? But I think the fact that they physically gave time, you know, would have comforted him in some way. I found this one interesting, what God does not do for Job when he finally speaks. So at the end, after all of this, God doesn't give Job any answers. He doesn't say, I did this because of that, I did this, I did that, I'm sorry for that. He doesn't apologise for being silent for so long. He doesn't offer a hint of information about the whole thing between himself. He doesn't tell Job that it was Satan that started off and all of that. He doesn't tell any of that. He doesn't even acknowledge that Job has been through his struggles. He doesn't say any of that. You know, sometimes we think that God has to explain everything to us. But those of us that are parents, do you explain everything to your children? Do you tell them everything about why you did a particular thing? Or there are some things that you never share because they're just not relevant, that they don't need to know. Maybe there's some things you don't want to tell them. The time that you did this and saved them from that, maybe you don't want to tell them that. You know, that's what happens, isn't it? Next little handout I've given you, I know I'm jumping through quickly, I try to share as much as I can. A sampling of God's 77 questions to Job. Now, obviously, God's got the big picture of creation in his mind. Job's got the small picture of his life and his problems. But it's hard, isn't it? Because we only ever really see our picture. We don't see the big picture. Now, what happens in God's speech? God's speech to Job stresses the majesty, the power, the wisdom, and the knowledge of the Almighty. And I'm not going to read those 77 questions out. Or you can read them for yourself in your own time. Some of them, you know, begin, who was this that darkens counsel by words of that knowledge? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Now, jumping down. Have you entered the treasuries of the snow? Have you entered the treasuries of the hill? It goes 77 things that he shares, and God puts Job into perspective of his little spot on planet Earth compared with the whole of eternity. Why have we looked at Job? You know, what are the principles that we can learn from it? Firstly, and you're looking at 1 Peter 4:12, you just want to turn to that. It's 1 Peter 4:12 says this. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. You need to remember that our life is full of trials, and always come. Don't be surprised, since our world has fallen, we need to understand that those who love us may give us wrong advice. Don't be fooled. Make your decision according to God's principles. And because we follow God's principles, sometimes, because we live in a world that doesn't, that there are going to be other things that happen to us, And don't be disillusioned. Job pointed out, shall we accept good from God, not accept adversity? There's always going to be a balance of things. Amongst all the things here, Job's faith in the midst of his trials. But he knows the way I take when he has tried me, I shall come forth as gold. In other words, I know God knows my situation. I believe it is God who is testing me. I believe that after the trials have ended, he will bless me in a unique way. And I'll put on there 7 lessons about our God. There is nothing God cannot do. Number 1. Number 2, it's impossible to frustrate God's purposes. Number 3, God's plans beyond our understanding, too deep to explain. Number 4, only through God's instruction are we able to humble ourselves and rest in his will. Number 5, when the day of reckoning arrives, God is always just. No one can be compared to God when it comes to blessings, but only God can fill our final years with divine music that frees us to live above our certain self. Two enduring truths to learn from the end of Job's story. Forgiveness is worth asking for. Justice is worth waiting for. And 2 final lessons from Job. We don't need to know why we or anyone else suffers. It's just enough to trust in God. It's also possible to maintain godly integrity throughout severe trials. Now at the end, Job's 4 great rewards. His possessions were doubled. His relatives and friends emerge. His children are all replaced. I know that doesn't sound right, because you can never replace the children that you lost, but he had more children. I'm sure he still had a pain of the ones that he lost, but children were replaced in a sense. And he lived a long and satisfying life. 7 lessons worth remembering. We never know ahead of time the plans that God has for us. A vertical perspective will keep us from horizontal panic. In other words, look up to God rather than looking across at what's happening on your left and your right. That's not always easy to do. Discernment is needed to detect wrong advice from well-meaning people. People can mean well, but they can be wrong. When things turn from bad to worse, solid theology helps us remain strong and stable, knowing what we believe in other words. Caring and sensitive friends know when to come, how to respond, what to say, and when to leave. It's easy to be judgmental when examining another person's trials. It's dead easy to look at someone else's life and judge them. But when it's you and you've got those emotions, it's different. The cultivation of obedient endurance is a crowning mark of maturity. Learning to endure and to do what we believe God wants us to do, that's about being a mature Christian. And learning just to keep on going and trusting in God. And to finish, Job 42, 7-17. And we'll just read it as we finish, and I'll open up for any questions. So that's Job 42. Seven, 17. And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord sent Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath is kindled against thee and against thy two friends, for ye have not spoken of me the thing that is right, as my servant Job hath. Therefore take unto you now 7 bullocks and 7 rams, and go unto my servant Job, and offer up yourselves a burnt offering. My servant Job shall pray for you, for him will I accept, lest I deal with you after your folly, in that ye have not spoken of me the thing which is right, like my servant Job. So Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and so forth, and Nethmite went and did according as the Lord commanded them. The Lord also accepted Job. And the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Also the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then came he unto them all his brethren, and all his sisters, and all they that had been of his acquaintance before, and did eat bread with him in his house, and they bemoaned him, and comforted him over all the evil that the Lord had brought upon him. Every man also gave him a piece of money, and every one an earring of gold. So the Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning. For he had 14,000 sheep, and 6,000 camels, and 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 she asses. He had also 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the name of the first Jemimah, and named the second Kezia, and the name of the third Karen Hapuk. And in all the land were no women found so fair as the daughters of Job. And her father gave them inheritance among the brethren. After this lived Job 140 years, and saw his sons and his sons' sons, even 4 generations. So Job died, being old and full of days. So verse 8, Job was transformed, Job was vindicated. Verse 10, Job was restored. For me, that's us. We're finished with the book of Job. You know, like I say, you mightn't necessarily think of that as poetry, but we talked about suffering. Last lesson, I'd like 1,000 words on that, covering those questions. We've looked at Job and his relationships, and we've looked at friendships today. Any questions? And then if then we'll finish, and I believe we'll finish a little bit earlier to do. Any questions, comments from anyone? No? Everyone's quiet. Okay, well, God bless you. Next time, we're going to jump into the book of Psalms. Okay, God bless you. If you can get that, I would like that work in for next time, so you've got till next lesson. Or if you do get it done before then, drop me an email. I obviously need that as soon as I can. Okay, God bless, and I'll see you all soon.